My world is made of books, silence, and order. I'm Joan, 70, a retired librarian who specialized in ancient cryptography, the study of secret writing and unbreakable codes. My superpower isn't knitting. It's patterns, logic, and meticulous organization. But even my expertise couldn't protect me from my own son. My son Leo is a tech entrepreneur, a disruptor who values speed and flash over foundation. He failed at several startups and was desperate for cash. He came to my house, offering to update my digital security, claiming the internet was too dangerous for me. I trusted him completely, giving him access to my computer and bank details. I thought I was getting security. I was getting sabotaged. A week later, my bank account was empty. My savings, everything I had from my retirement, was gone. I saw the trail immediately. Malware, keyloggers, and a massive transfer routed through a shell account. I confronted Leo, showing him the technical evidence of his theft. Leo didn't flinch. He laughed, a cold, dismissive sound. "Mom, you don't even know what a VPN is. You're too old for the internet. Go back to your books. This is a hack. You can't prove anything." That was the line that crossed the ultimate boundary. He insulted my intelligence and dismissed my life's work. He thought the new world was his, and my old world of knowledge was useless. He was wrong. My revenge wouldn't be caught by police. It would be a puzzle he had to solve. I knew the only way to beat him was to use the skills he mocked: cryptography, logic, and ancient history. I immediately began constructing a digital treasure hunt based on codes only a librarian would know. The key to recovering the stolen money would be hidden behind a series of intellectual traps, forcing the tech bro to fail publicly at his own game. I knew I couldn't just call the police. Leo would simply move the money instantly, and his lawyer would spin the theft as a complex, unproven hack. My first move was to protect the remaining digital access points and ensure the recovery funds were locked behind an unbreakable intellectual wall. I didn't try to retrieve the money yet. Instead, I created a complex, multi-layered, encrypted backup drive. I then transferred a small but critical amount of the stolen money into a dummy recovery account. This account was technically accessible, but required 3 separate, impossibly complex passwords. This was my bait. I decided the passwords wouldn't be random. They would be the ultimate intellectual humiliation for my son. I used my librarian expertise to create a code based on ancient history and literature, subjects Leo had always ridiculed. The passwords were the title of a lost Byzantine text, the Dewey Decimal Number for Greek mythology, and the year of Archimedes' death in Roman numerals. I encrypted the recovery account and left a subtle, seemingly innocent clue on Leo's main computer that hinted at the location of the first password. The treasure map was drawn. I then filed an anonymous report with a close friend at the FBI cybercrime unit mentioning the transfer, but not Leo's name, ensuring that official heat would be on the investigation immediately. Leo, desperate to cover his tracks and move the money, took the bait. He saw the dummy recovery account and the first cryptic clue. He thought he was hacking into a simple account. He had no idea he had just walked into a cryptographic trap set by his old, crazy mother. Leo realized quickly that the recovery account was locked. He saw the encrypted prompt and the first clue I left him, a simple, vague reference to the key to the great library. He saw it as a technical challenge, something he could solve with algorithms and brute force. He spent 3 days wasting time on digital solutions. I watched him from a distance, enjoying his frustration. I knew his weakness, arrogance and lack of foundational knowledge. He was a surface-level tech guy. He couldn't handle true complexity. When he failed the digital hack, he finally came to my house. He found me, knitting calmly. He tried to trick me. "Mom," he used his soft voice, "I found a strange spam email about an old library. Did you click on anything weird?" I smiled sweetly. "Oh, Leo, a library? How fascinating. I've always loved the story of the Library of Alexandria." I then casually mentioned a specific, obscure Greek scholar associated with the library's catalog. That was the key to the first cipher. Leo rushed home, not to hack, but to frantically search old library records and Wikipedia entries. He finally realized the password was the title of the lost Byzantine text. He cracked the first lock. He was jubilant, believing he had outsmarted a simple coding error. He didn't realize he had just confirmed his mother's intellectual superiority. The ticking clock got louder. Leo now knew the money was recoverable, but he had 2 more layers of unbreakable code to solve. And the FBI was actively tracking the frozen recovery funds. Cracking the first password only increased Leo's desperation and arrogance. He realized the money was real, and he needed it now. He started suspecting his old business partners, not me. He bragged to his friends that he was playing a complex game to retrieve his lost funds. This was perfect. The public boast created an audience for his inevitable fall. The second password was based on the Dewey Decimal System, the library cataloging method Leo had mocked his entire life. The clue I left him was hidden in a very public place, a dedication plaque I wrote years ago on a bench outside the local library. The inscription simply read, "May all seekers of truth find 292.05. Leo found the plaque after a furious search. He immediately tried to treat the number 292.05 as a simple 4-digit PIN. He wasted another day on digital brute force attacks. He was failing spectacularly at something only a librarian would instantly recognize, the Dewey Decimal category for Greek mythology, specifically the section for the Olympian gods. I watched the surveillance cameras I'd secretly set up outside my house. I saw him sitting outside the library, looking frustrated and defeated. I called him. "Leo," I said calmly, "do you remember when you hated visiting the library? You said Dewey was stupid. But the Olympian gods always had a specific place on the shelf." That was the hint he needed. He finally realized the number was a code pointing to the required mythical book title. He was forced to submit the Dewey Decimal number for Greek mythology as the second password. He cracked the second lock. He solves the code, but the stakes are rising. He was one step closer to the money, but he was also one step closer to ruin. The pressure was now unbearable. Leo was now deep in the psychological trap. He was obsessed with the third password, which was the final lock. But the net was closing in from a new direction: his investors. Leo had bragged to his original investors that he had recovered his lost funds. The investors, already nervous about his past failures, demanded proof. They saw the money in the dummy recovery account and believed it was real. They demanded a public demonstration of the recovery and full access to the funds within 72 hours, or they would pull their funding, expose his past failures, and sue him personally.
The clock had become brutally real. Leo was now under immense pressure from both the FBI investigation, the anonymous tip, and his investors, his own pride. The only way to save himself was to solve the final code. I knew his arrogance meant he would only look for a complex, modern solution. The final password was the simplest, most obscure historical detail: the year of Archimedes' death, in Roman numerals. The final clue I left him was even simpler: an old birthday card with a reference to measuring the past. I watched the surveillance. Leo was a mess, yelling at his computer, running on no sleep, trying every complex digital trick he knew. He was failing to realize that the simplest truth was the most predicted. I knew the final password was the intellectual defeat that would break him. Leo, in his desperation, finally came back to my house. He didn't try to trick me. He was begging. "Mom," he pleaded, "I need your help. It's a history problem. It's about Archimedes. I need the year he died, but it has to be in Roman numerals." He was defeated, publicly admitting that his old crazy mother held the key to his entire future. I played the role of the slow, thinking mother. "Archimedes, dear. Oh, yes, he was very smart. You know, when I was young, we always used Roman numerals for dates." Then I paused, looked up at the ceiling, and slowly spoke the number out loud. Leo scribbled it down furiously. He had solved the final cipher by surrendering and admitting his intellectual inferiority to the woman he scorned. He rushed out of the house to enter the final password. He entered the Roman numeral password, and the lock opened. He saw the money, the small critical amount I had used as bait. He immediately began the transfer, believing he was safe. But I was ready for the ultimate trap. I had set a final secret digital trigger. The moment the transfer began, my system immediately notified the FBI with the exact account numbers, times, and routing information. The trap was sprung. Leo, jubilant and exhausted, called his investors, shouting that he had successfully recovered the funds. He scheduled an immediate meeting to prove his genius. But when he arrived at the meeting, he was greeted not by grateful investors, but by federal agents. The big police moved in instantly, seizing his computers and freezing the funds mid-transfer. The investors were furious. The full truth of the digital treasure hunt was revealed. Leo's initial hack was simple. The real genius was his mother's cryptographic trap. The agents found the evidence of his keyloggers and malware, and they saw the meticulous documentation of the transfer that I had engineered. Leo tried to lie, claiming the truth recorder was an artifact of my senility. But the federal agents, reviewing the cryptographic puzzle, saw clear evidence of his intent to steal. He was exposed as a common criminal who was defeated by archaic history and logic. The humiliation was complete. Leo was arrested, and the charges against him were severe. His investors immediately sued him personally, stripping him of everything he had left. The story was picked up by the media, not as a typical fraud case, but as a unique mother-son cyber showdown. The articles focused on the irony. The tech expert was defeated by Dewey Decimal Codes and ancient history. Leo, the arrogant young man, was humiliated on a global stage, not because he was caught, but because he was intellectually outmatched by his old crazy mother. He lost his reputation, his freedom, and his pride. My revenge was perfect. I didn't need to put him in jail. I needed to prove my mind was stronger. I had used the ultimate psychological weapon, forcing the arrogant expert to publicly fail at the one thing he claimed mastery over: intelligence. The chaos eventually faded. I worked with the FBI's forensic team, using my expertise to fully untangle the rest of Leo's financial web, ensuring that the victims and I could recover the maximum amount of stolen funds. The knowledge that I helped save other people from his scam was the only comfort I had. I recovered the majority of my retirement savings. Leo, facing jail time and financial ruin, was completely silent. The ultimate loss for him wasn't the money. It was the total destruction of his reputation as a tech expert. I realized the true victory was internal. Leo had tried to steal my mind, my security, and my dignity. I reclaimed all three through my work. My old knowledge wasn't just useful, it was an unbreakable, unhackable weapon. 1 year later, the chapter was closed. Leo was gone, dealing with the consequences of his crime. My life was quiet, orderly, and peaceful once more. I've sat at my desk, looking at the old books, the ones Leo dismissed. I smiled. I had not needed a single line of computer code to defeat him. I needed a lost Byzantine text and a Roman numeral date. I used the recovered funds to establish a small foundation focused on teaching digital security to seniors, using history and logic as the base. Something simple and unhackable. I called it the Legacy Code. I had protected my legacy and ensured my skills would save others. My mind was clear, sharp, and strong. I may have been 70 and mocked for my age, but I had proven that the oldest knowledge is the most powerful weapon. Never too old to know the code, and certainly never too old to defeat a hacker.